Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is good, ladies and gentlemen? We are back again. Another episode of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Going live at 7 p.m. Mountain Time every single weekday. You guys know the drill by now. Very happy for the support that we've gotten. Guys, just continue to go ahead and interact with the channel and show us you appreciate. If you want to drop a tip, feel free to do that at streamelements.com/GSMC-sports-network/tip. And make sure you're checking out the Patreon too. 2 extra segments that I bring you every single day. I know a lot of you guys are fantasy junkies, fantasy football fanatics, and you need that content so you can get my exclusive takes over there at the Patreon. Today, we're going to be talking about the injury report. We kind of went through the injury report earlier this week, but we're going to update because there's some important fantasy relevance that is happening with injuries right now. A lot of guys that are either struggling or just getting over their injury. We'll talk about them. Then I'm going to give you guys my 2 favorite game previews for this week. Obviously, there's a couple, high-scoring offenses that are going to be going up against each other, with the Dolphins going up against the Eagles, and then Kansas City's going to go over and play LA Chargers in SoFi Stadium. So I'm going to talk about both of those games and the fantasy implications, guys that I like, how I think the game will go, and stuff like that. And then we'll get into the weather report. I'm always bringing you guys the weather report weekly because we saw if you guys were, invested deeply in that Browns and 49ers game. And I'm sure a lot of us did not know that there was going to be a lot of rain over there. So I'm making sure to keep y'all updated, especially as this winter season, fall season is rolling up on us. But I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. And without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with our injury report and pretty much breaking down just like the important ones. I know we went through it more in depth a couple days ago, but just want to rescan so everybody's up to date. Trevor Lawrence obviously playing right now. Travis Etienne already has 2 touchdowns in this game. That's the 3rd week in a row that he's had a 2-touchdown performance. So he is rolling right now, looking like a top 5 running back in fantasy football. But Trevor Lawrence did decide to play here in this game. The knee, he had a knee injury that he had in the 4th quarter last week, and apparently he got over it, so that's good. The Saints and Jamal Williams had came off of the IR list, and I'm not sure if he's playing. I had been watching the game here, and I don't know if we have him in there, but he'll at least be back soon, so that's definitely good. A guy who scored 17 touchdowns last year, so I don't think you can forget about him completely in fantasy yet. But let's get into these guys who are going to be playing like Sunday, Monday games. So starting here, we got Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously has that injured back that he's been dealing with, and he is not supposed to play here Sunday against the Bears. He is currently listed as doubtful, so we're not expecting to see Jimmy Garoppolo, which is definitely not good for the next guy I need to talk about, which is Davante Adams. He was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday was the last update. And with Davante Adams, man, he's just been struggling like these last 3 weeks, and I think it's all pretty much due to the shoulder. If there was ever a time for Davante Adams to come out and perform, it would be against his former squad, his former team in the Packers. He played against them and didn't really do too much, so I think that should kind of speak to his injury, and it's probably a little bit more serious than we had originally thought. So those 2 for the Raiders. We got Justin Fields, who obviously dislocated his thumb. He did not practice on Thursday, so that's definitely not a good sign. He's my starting quarterback. We'll have to be looking for other options from Justin Fields moving forward right now. And then Rashawn Johnson, who obviously Khalil Herbert was already placed on the IR, Now Rashawn Johnson, who is the backup, he sustained a concussion this past week. He did not practice on Thursday, so we'll continue to update you with how that's going and who the starter for the Bears will be. I'll try to let you know by tomorrow if I am aware. Then we got Deshaun Watson. Obviously had the shoulder contusion. He's been struggling with that whole injury. I think he's missed the past 2 games, and this Thursday here today, obviously in practice, he was a limited participant. So that's just going to continue to flow. Obviously, he's had a bit of a break, hasn't been taking NFL hits for the past 2 weeks. So hopefully we'll see him back. I know that he wants to play. So I think we'll see him back here pretty soon. Then we got Harrison Bryant. He was also a limited participant. He's one of their tight ends. David Njoku had been going through the face burns that he had gotten from when he was just chilling at home, which is crazy. So now their backup tight end is injured as well. So both tight ends going through some stuff in Cleveland. Let's see. We got Alec Pierce was a limited participant in practice here today. Pretty deep fantasy reach if you're going with Alec Pierce. Juju Smith-Schuster was limited in his practice today with a concussion. So I guess he got a concussion this past week, and we'll see if he's going to play. Obviously, another deep guy if you're reaching real hard, if you're starting Juju Smith-Schuster in your league. Hunter Henry, also with the Patriots, 2 limited participant at practice with the ankle. Just listed as questionable right now. Doesn't seem too serious. It doesn't seem like a high ankle sprain by any means. So I think we'll probably see Hunter Henry out there this weekend. We got Saquon Barkley, limited participant in practice with the ankle. Obviously, he's been dealing with the ankle pretty much all year. That has been his injury that he's missed games for. So, it doesn't heal overnight. We'll have to see, but I'm sure he wants to play too. He is the entire New York Giants roster. Then we got Daniel Jones, neck, limited participant. It seems like his projections for ESPN are up. So we're thinking that we're probably going to see Daniel Jones here on Sunday. Is it Sunday? Yeah, I think it's Sunday. Sam Laporta and this whole Lions squad is actually going through it right now as well. David Montgomery didn't practice today, and we don't think we're going to see him in this next game. Jahmyr Gibbs had a limited practice today. He's been dealing with the hamstring for the past 3 weeks. And then Sam Laporta has a calf injury and practiced on a limited basis too here on Thursday. So very, very weird. All of their top guys are currently injured. Amon-Ra St. Brown was just injured a couple weeks ago, so they're definitely going through it with their talent and their ball catchers. Also, Craig Reynolds, who's supposed to be the next man up after David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, he was also a limited participant at practice today with the hamstring and a toe injury. So, all their ball carriers are just struggling right now. Pat Freiermuth, who had been sitting out for a little bit, tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was a full participant at practice on Wednesday. So that's really, really good to see. He's missed a couple games, and he's one of the top tight ends in the league, in my opinion. Big, strong, fast, so happy to see him back. Also, Deontay Johnson, obviously he was on the IR with his own hamstring injury that he had maybe in the second game or the first game of the season, and he's all the way back. He's a full participant at practice. Obviously off the IR, and a guy who was top 10 in targets last year. So we expect him to be doing big things, now that he's healthy. Then we got Kyron Williams. He's not going to play here Sunday against the Steelers. The ankle. Ronnie Rivers, who is his backup, not going to play. He's on injured reserve with a knee injury. So now it's a question of, is it going to be Royce Freeman who gets the touches, or there's one other guy, Zach Evans, who gets the touches. Those are the 2 in the backfield that are slated to get those touches. So we'll see what happens in the Rams backfield over there. Kyler Murray, limited participant in practice, which is a great sign. Hopefully he'll be able to come over and take that starting job back. It's not a question. Obviously he's the starter, but it's just a question of when he's going to be able to, be healthy enough to play. Tyler Lockett, limited participant in practice, as well as DK Metcalf, did not take part in practice here on Wednesday. So limited Tyler Lockett and DK did not practice at all on Wednesday, was the last update for them. Tyler Lockett going through the hamstring, and then DK has been dealing with his ribs and I guess his hip too. So definitely keep an eye on those guys, both listed as questionable at the moment. We haven't seen Aaron Jones in so long at this point, since his crazy game against the Bears, where he obviously popped off and pulled his hamstring right at the end of a big play. He was a limited participant here at practice Wednesday. So that was the last update from that. But I think that he has to be moving towards playing at some point here. He sat out for like a good amount of time, and all he did was pull his hamstring. So I think he'll be back relatively soon, if not this week. Yeah, let's talk Devon Achane. Achane expected to miss minimum of 4 games while injury reserve. So we're expecting a week 11 return here from Devon Achane is what it's looking like. Obviously, we're in week 7 right now, so we're going to have to wait 3 more whole weeks for Devon Achane. But obviously, we kind of knew that going in with him being on the IR. Want to make sure he's healthy. He is a guy that I lucked out and was able to grab, and I need him back as soon as humanly possible. And then also Jeff Wilson, who has been making his return for this 2023 season. He was a full participant at practice on Wednesday, so definitely expect Jeff Wilson to be getting some touches for this Miami backfield. Who else? Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins on the IR, and I think that's a lot of the reason that they brought in Julio Jones. If you guys didn't know, Eagles just signed Julio Jones. I think that's going to be a great fit. Only a 34-year-old wide receiver. We see 33-year-old Adam Thielen just doing major work in the league. I don't think that it's too far-fetched to see Julio Jones actually making an impact here for this Eagles squad, but Devontae Smith, as of right now, went through a limited practice today with that hamstring injury, another hamstring injury that we're seeing. Absolutely crazy. Dallas Goedert limited with a groin as well. And I think that no, it definitely doesn't wrap it up. We got to talk Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, so we were originally thinking that this wasn't a big injury with the oblique/rib injury that he that sent him out of the last game that he was playing in. And apparently he's not taking part in practices. He wasn't taking part in practices today. So definitely not a great sign, but I'm sure he's just getting extra attention from the medical staff. That's a guy that wants to play every single game. And then Deebo Samuel, goodness gracious. I need to... Deebo Samuel did not practice on Thursday, so that's a terrible sign. He's currently listed as questionable. And then let's talk Justin Jefferson, 4 to 6 weeks with the hamstring injury to wrap it up. We'll see what happens. I feel like there's a lot of talk about them just shutting him down for some reason, but that's another guy that you cannot keep away from the field. I know that he wants to put up a 1,000-yard season, so I think we'll see Justin Jefferson back here soon once he is able to get off the IR. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 4-week situation. Guys, when I come back, let's dive into some of these game previews. I'm going to give you guys the Chargers versus the Chiefs in this next coming segment, and then afterwards, I'll give you my Sunday Night Football preview with the Dolphins versus Eagles. Then we'll talk the weather report so everybody knows what's going on. Okay, yep, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. What is good? GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast going live 7 p.m. Mountain Time every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Go ahead, drop a comment if you have a question. I'm down to answer any question that you guys could possibly have for me from a fantasy football standpoint. Actually, my little chat bar is like loading, so I'm not sure if I could answer a question today, but if you leave a comment, I'm always down to reply and answer anything I can. I do this for y'all, as you know. So guys, let's get into this Chiefs Chargers matchup. It's going to be happening 2:25 Mountain, my time, in the late window on Sunday. This is going to be a doozy. I think we got Chargers Chiefs over here in Arrowhead. I gotta double check and make sure this is correct. No, it's not in Arrowhead. My bad. Completely wrong. It's going to be in SoFi Stadium. ESPN currently giving Chargers 31% to win at home and giving the Chiefs 69% to win on the road. Very, very crazy in my opinion, and definitely going to have some fantasy implications in this game. Multiple people should be going absolutely dumb, crazy, stupid in this game from a fantasy perspective. Obviously, we're seeing Austin Eckler come back, which is very exciting, and then Travis Kelce. Those would probably be my two favorite guys. We'll make sure to talk about everybody here. Two very electric offenses, multiple, very talented, flex guys, wide receivers, running backs, all that. Two very elite quarterbacks. This is going to be a game where there's not going to be too much rushing defense, from the rush defense standpoint, however I can say that. 23rd and 25th rushing defenses, respectively, in these two teams. Middling pass rushes from both squads. Chiefs do have a pretty good coverage. I like one of their corners a lot in Trent McDuffie. And then Chargers, pretty solid personnel on defense, but they've never really turned in a good game so far this year, except for like racking up sacks. Obviously, they have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who have been eating out there on the edge, but really, really bad coverage from the Chargers. They also just let go of their number one corner in J.C. Jackson. Now he goes and plays for the Patriots. Let's talk these guys on offense, though, from pretty much the fantasy perspective, now that I gave you guys the little intro. Austin Eckler, man. Austin Eckler, probably the most valuable fantasy player that you could have had for the past couple of years, and I still think that he's going to continue to be one of the most valuable players, probably of all time in fantasy football over these next couple of years. He comes back immediately. Obviously, they're probably still getting him worked in to the offense, letting him get that game speed with his ankle that had been bothering him. That's why he sat out for the last technically the last 4 weeks, but last week was their bye week. He probably would have been back for that game were they to have one, and came back, did decent, 14 carries, 27 yards, also had 4 receptions for 35 yards. I feel like this guy is literally a lock for his 4 receptions for like at least 25 yards. So that's just an extra, 6.5 fantasy points that you can always add on. He's also going to get 15 to 20 carries per game, just kind of depending on how the game script is going. He's so dynamic and so quick through the hole. I really do think that Austin Eckler is the most talented, fantasy running back that you can currently have, maybe other than Christian McCaffrey on the 15-game touchdown streak. Those two are really neck and neck, truthfully, and both Colorado guys, by the way. Austin Eckler, Western State alumni, D2. Apparently they were 10-1 his senior year, and then he left and they went 0-10, I think. It was like a drastic change. He was doing everything for that D2 program down in Gunnison. And moving on, we got Keenan Allen and Joshua Palmer. Those two are going to be the ones who are getting the most snaps and getting the most action from Justin Herbert and, just in the passing game. We also have Quentin Johnston, who was their first-round pick that they're really deciding to not use at the moment. I do think that at some point his role will pretty much have to increase because teams are going to start keying in on Keenan Allen, and I do expect some adjustments to be made, and that's going to force Justin Herbert to be making different reads. Quentin Johnston's like a 6'4". He literally looks just like Mike Williams, but just a younger version. Very, very good player. So I do imagine that he'll start making an impact. I don't know if that's going to be this week. Definitely the wideout that I would be targeting is Keenan Allen. ESPN having him projected to go for 19 fantasy points. I'm sure Trent McDuffie will have something to say about that. He's going to be probably mirroring him or shadowing him most of the game and playing right next to him. So I think Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston may be looking for some more action. Also, Gerald Everett, who we saw score a touchdown late in that Cowboys game. He's always an option. However, his targets are kind of here and there. It seems like he's always going to be somewhat involved, though. So if you're looking for like a really consistent tight end, someone who can give you like 7 points a game, and you just need those 7 points, you know the rest of your guys are going to go off and do their thing. You just need a tight end to kind of slot in. I do not hate Gerald Everett, and he is currently only rostered in 26.5% of ESPN fantasy leagues. So definitely interesting. Other than that, I don't think that there's too many guys that we can talk about on this Chargers offense. Kind of like Donald Parham Jr. He's actually caught a couple touchdowns. He's another tight end with touchdown upside more than anything. He already has 3 touchdowns this year. 2 of them did come in one game. He's a 6'8" tight end, so he literally looks like a power forward out there. But definitely wouldn't tell you to roster him if you're not in a really, really deep situation. Let's talk Chiefs. Chiefs offense is obviously one of the most efficient, even though they're not the most talented personnel-wise anymore. Makes no sense to me why they got rid of Tyreek Hill with having the strongest arm in all of football and then the fastest legs in all of football. That just seems like a combo that you should never break up and never take away from each other, but we did, whatever. Now they got Kelsey. From a fantasy point standpoint, obviously Kelsey's going to be the most dynamic threat in this offense, and then after that is not a receiver. It's obviously Isaiah Pacheco, who has been doing major work so far this year. He is currently ranked as running back 13 in fantasy football right now, and he's just pretty much on a roll. He runs really hard. It looks like he has something to prove every single game, and I really do like investing in players like that, guys who are constantly hungry and not taking no for an answer. You see him out there like he's trying to run through every single tackle. He's not taking a play off. Definitely the type of guy that I want to be investing in. And last week, he didn't even really do too much. This was he was on a 3-game touchdown streak, and he ended that here in Week 6 versus Denver. But just by a value of playing hard, still ended up with 15.8 fantasy points, 16 carries for 62 yards, and then added in a season high 6 receptions for 36 yards. So he's just he really is just out there trying to get open, do whatever he can for his team. Really good guy in my opinion, and if he continues to just keep working hard, I don't see how he doesn't probably make the Pro Bowl this year and then be a top 10 running back in a top 10 offense for fantasy football this year. I really do like Isaiah Pacheco, and you got him late if you were able to get him. Let's talk Travis Kelce. Obviously, he's the most dangerous threat. We knew that he was going to be tight end 1. It wasn't even a question, really, of who was going to be the number 1 tight end. And even though he missed a week versus Detroit, which is their only loss, by the way, he came back and he's already slotted himself as the number 1 tight end in all of fantasy football so far this season. Last 2 games, 22 points and 21 points. That's just what we like to see from Travis Kelce. This whole time, he's been getting targets out the wazoo. Week 2, 9 targets as soon as he comes back. Then Week 3, 8 targets. 9 targets Week 4. 11 targets Week 5 versus Minnesota. Then 9 targets here again versus Denver. He's getting his food. Patrick Mahomes will be feeding Travis Kelce at any chance that he can get. That is 100% guarantee, and you can take that to the bank with you if you want. Rashee Rice would be really the only other fantasy relevant guy that I can talk about here at the moment. I feel like I don't know what's going on with this Chiefs offense and why they don't have multiple receivers that can get it done. Sky Moore has been more than disappointing. Kadarius Toney has been relatively disappointing, especially with all those drops there in Week 1. Has kind of just plummeted his stock, and he hasn't done anything to rise it. Jerick McKinnon, who was a monster last year, we've seen him make a couple plays here and there. He actually had I think he had a catch that was called back. He ended up running it like 60 yards, but it got called back, so no fantasy points there, which was very, very sad to see. But this whole offense has just been struggling from a receiver standpoint. Their guy who really I think has been doing the most from getting those deep balls. Patrick Mahomes, strongest arm, absolutely able to get the ball like 50, 60 yards down the field, and it's really only been Justin Watson who has been taking advantage of that. He has a ton of yards, but you can't even really play him in fantasy because he only gets those 1 to 2 targets a game that are usually the deep ball. Rashee Rice would be the only other guy that you can target to play in fantasy right now. As it's currently looking, he's getting a ton of targets. It looks like he's going to get his food as well. These last 4 weeks, 7 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets. And he's pretty efficient too with it. He finds a way to make yards after the catch more times than not, and already has 2 touchdowns so far this year too. He plays a ton of snaps, and he's currently sitting at wide receiver number 48 in fantasy. Not amazing, and he's only rostered in 41% of leagues, but I think it makes sense to play him just given his quarterback situation. When you have the best quarterback in football, not only one guy can completely carry the entire squad. Travis Kelce can't do everything for this team. Some other guy's going to need to come in and help Patrick Mahomes out, and I do think that is going to be Rashee Rice for the Chiefs. In this matchup, the Chargers versus Chiefs have won the last 3. All of these games have been shootouts, super shootouts too. Like, I'm not talking like 21-14 or 21-21. Like, most of these games are going like 27-38. And these are divisional foes, you know what I'm saying? Like, 2 very good offenses that just know what each other are going to do. They've played each other so many times. They have so much film on the opposing squad that they definitely just have a good idea of what's going to happen in this game. In the last 5 games, neither team has scored less than 21 points. So definitely expect some points to get up on the board here in this game. I'm very excited to watch it. Might be game of the week, but game of the year might be right after it. Game of the year we're going to talk about next here in segment 3, where I'm breaking down the Dolphins versus Eagles on Sunday Night Football in Philly. It's going to be a wild ride. I can't wait to watch that game. So come back with me and let's talk about that. Alright, guys, we are back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate your support. Let's talk Eagles Dolphins here. Love these 2 offenses, love these 2 squads, and this is going to be a battle here. Apparently, over on ESPN, they are giving these 2 squads, Dolphins, they're giving 58% to win, and then the Eagles are getting 42% to win here in this matchup. It's going to be in Philly, so I'm just excited to see what happens. We got 2 very elite offenses, both top tier, both if you guys were watching on Wednesday and watching my fantasy offensive rating, both of these teams rank in the top 2 of that. I think also the last one, the last segment here would also apply to that as well. But regardless, elite offenses. PFF ranks Dolphins as the number 1 offense in the entire league. They rank the Eagles as the 7th offense in the entire league. So we know these are two juggernauts. Eagles obviously have the offensive line advantage and have a ton of good guys, chilling on their offensive line, protecting Jalen Hurts, run blocking for guys like DeAndre Swift, who are making a lot of plays. They're second in run blocking, fifth in pass blocking. And then on the other side of the ball, Dolphins top three. They have top three metrics in passing efficiency, receiving efficiency, and rushing efficiency all together. So you know that these guys have actually been turning in very good performances. I'm very excited to see what happens. And surprisingly, a lot of people wouldn't be thinking this at the moment, but both of these defense are also top 12 in the league as well. Dolphins currently ranking as a 5th rated defense in the entire league, and the Eagles ranked as a 12th ranked defense in the league. Dolphins are also 5th in pass rush, and Eagles are 6th in pass rush. So this is there's gonna be a lot of factors, and I'm kind of building up to talking about how scared I am a little bit for Tua here. And we know this pass rush is gonna be on. I don't think this is gonna be a game where there's not gonna be tempers flaring. I think there's gonna be a lot of bad blood. It's on prime time. Two of the best teams in the entire league going and battling it out. I definitely see like some drama happening here in this one. And then I want to talk about my fantasy guys that I'm liking, guys that I think could have good performances. And I want to already say with no question, no doubt at all, that Tyreek Hill should have a massive game in this one. Coverage has been pretty shaky both ways for both of these squads. They both don't rank too highly on their coverage grades. And we saw even like Adam Thielen getting off against this Miami Dolphins coverage, and they're not going to have Jalen Ramsey back yet. He did just start practicing, but he won't be ready to go this week for sure. So he's going to be sitting out. Oh, wait. What am I saying? No, sorry. Darius Slay is going to obviously be guarding Tyreek Hill, but obviously just on like both sides of the ball, coverage has been, a bit lackluster, and I think that A.J. Brown will also be able to get off. We'll talk about him in a second. But yeah, Tyreek Hill absolutely going to have a great day. He's been going extremely crazy. I would love to get here so I could talk about him. Yeah, he's wide receiver 1 right now in fantasy football, doing big things. 44 points week 1, 30 points week 3, 32 points week 5, and then 28 points here in week 6. I just see him having a great game. There's nothing else to really say about it. Jalen Waddle, very, very solid player too. He's been heating up a little bit more here in these last 2 weeks. He's on a 2-game touchdown streak too. Last week, 7 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown. He's been getting the targets too. These last 2 weeks, they were kind of down in the first 4 with 5, 6, and 5. In weeks 5 and 6, he had 10 and 9. So definitely getting more volume. I'm sure that this Philadelphia Eagles defense will be concerned with Tyreek Hill and everything that he's going to do. What they aren't going to realize is that Jalen Waddle is that 1-2 punch that every wide receiver room needs, and he's just as liable to go and break off an 80-yard touchdown just like that. And I really like Jalen Waddle here, especially with Darius Slay being on the other side, probably focusing on Tyreek Hill for most of the game. Let's talk Raheem Mostert too. Another guy. This Dolphins offense is just producing fantasy weapons, and Raheem Mostert currently sitting at running back number 2 in fantasy football. Very weird, his whole situation, especially. We'll see what happens when Devon Achane comes back. Jeff Wilson is supposed to come back here this week, and then they still got guys like Savon Ahmed who are going to presumably be part of the game plan. So we really don't know what's going to happen, but we know that Raheem Mostert is the running back 1 technically for this squad. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, and they've been doing a really good job getting him out in space. He's already got 11 touchdowns so far this year. 11 touchdowns, which is crazy. Last game, 17 carries, 115 yards, 3 total touchdowns. He's been doing a little bit through the air too. Raheem Mostert is definitely someone on my list of people to target to trade for, just because there's still like some type of opinion that Devon Achane will, when he comes back, continue to make an impact and probably steal some carries, that his fantasy value is a bit down being Raheem Mostert. So I do think he's a worthy trade candidate. Those are pretty much the three guys that are, fantasy relevant for this Dolphins offense. It's kind of weird to think, like, as much offense as they put up and as many people as it looks like touch the ball, there's really only three guys on the Dolphins offense that are going to be making a difference right now in fantasy football, and that's Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert. We'll see kind of what happens with Jeff Wilson as he continues to progress and come back and, start to carry a little bit of the workload. But as of right now, those are the only three guys that really matter. Let's move over to the Eagles side of the ball here, and we got to start off talking about Jalen Hurts. He's the most dangerous fantasy quarterback that I've seen in a little bit. Currently sitting at quarterback 2 right now. But what I love about Jalen Hurts is just his rushing upside. It looks like he's going to add a whole 6 points to your fantasy team just like that. Pretty much every single week he's good for a rushing touchdown. They're just going to push him right into the end zone. Everybody's scared of it, and nobody can stop it. Really, really good. These last 3 weeks, 24 points, 27 points, and then 19 points in a game where he threw 3 interceptions. So his rushing will kind of minus out any of the mistakes that he will make during the game, whether that be a fumble or a pick. And he has been a little bit interception prone so far this year. He's been struggling throwing interceptions. He's thrown 7 already, but he has already scored 6 rushing touchdowns. So he's kind of just evening it out. He's a quarterback that'll continue to take chances down the field constantly. He's always going to be trying to push the ball down the field and make a play. The guy who's been making the most plays for him, obviously A.J. Brown, who's been doing a lot of work. He's rated as wide receiver 7 in fantasy football right now. 38 points week 4, then 18 week 5, 20 points week 6. He's definitely on a roll at the moment. His last 4 games, 131 yards, 175 yards, 127 yards, and 131 yards. He's literally putting up video game numbers. And it's really cool to see. He's getting a ton of targets from Jalen Hurts too, obviously. He can't stop throwing him the ball, and that has kind of hurt Devontae Smith's fantasy value right now just because A.J. Brown is doing so much, and it feels like the defense simply can't stop him. He's looking like one of the most consistent players in fantasy football, and I'm really liking him to have a good game here in this game. I think he's going to be going up against Xavier Howard. More than likely is who he's going to be going up against the most. So I do like that matchup. Devontae Smith, I like it a little bit, but not as much as A.J. Brown just because he's been getting the shorter end of the stick. Last week, Devontae Smith, where are his targets here? Devontae Smith, wide receiver 29 in fantasy football. Last week, he did get 11 targets, but only caught 5 of them. He's sometimes definitely not able to box out the opponents when it matters the most, and that's being of his detriment in fantasy football right now. They obviously have DeAndre Swift too, who's a very good running back, been very explosive. I could see him doing a lot with. I just can't speak. So sorry, guys. DeAndre Swift, yeah, I definitely think he could do a lot. He's been exploding through the hole, and just making a lot of plays. Guys, we're going to wrap up this segment. I definitely think that this is going to be a crazy game. Sunday Night Football might be game of the year. I'm sure points are going to go up. When I come back, let's talk about the weather report, and then we will wrap up the show. What is good, everybody? GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Austin. I can't really see if any of you guys are in here, but if you are, I appreciate you. The chat bar is just like loading up for me, and it's not showing me any of the comments or anything. But like I said, I will check it after, and if you guys have any questions, I'll definitely reply to them in the comments. Let's go over the weather report here. I broke down all of the games and all of the weather that's going to be happening here on Sunday or Monday. So let's just get right into it. Raiders are going to play the Bears. They're going to play them in Soldier Field out there in Chicago, Illinois. Looks like a fine game, 54 degrees, 7-mile-per-hour winds. I don't start worrying about winds really until they get up to like the 12, 13. Once it gets to 15, you know that the wind is definitely going to be a factor. So I'm in the Windy City. I'm not too worried about that. Browns versus Colts happening in Lucas Oil Stadium this week. 57 degrees, 8-mile-per-hour winds. Should be fine. If they're ever needed, there is a dome over there on Lucas Oil Stadium, so they can always close it up. But I'm sure they won't even need to do that on a day like that. Then we got Bills Patriots over there in Gillette Stadium. Going to be 57 degrees and 14-mile-per-hour winds. So definitely watch out for that. Wind at 14 miles per hour is definitely pretty fast and will have some type of effect on the football, I'd have to imagine. Commanders going to play the Giants over there in MetLife, pretty close to where Gillette Stadium is, and they're going to be 55 degrees and 12-mile-per-hour winds too in that game. That's going to be in the early window, so definitely going to be some windy stuff happening over there on the east side of the United States. Then we got Falcons Bucks, 84 degrees and sunny down there in Raymond James Stadium. The Buccaneers are going to be home in that game. Very, very nice game. Will be very, very sunny, so we appreciate that for sure. Lions Ravens happening, 61 degrees and 17-mile-per-hour winds over there in M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. That's significant wind. So everything on the East Coast, if you got an East Coast game that you're looking at to play like DFS or anything, just make sure you know that the wind is coming here on Sunday. 17 mile per hour winds, nothing to play with. Will definitely have some type of effect when the ball is thrown, and definitely when the ball is kicked too. Then we got Steelers Rams going to be in SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles, 71 degrees, 8-mile-per-hour winds over there. Nothing to worry about. Looks like if anything, the ball is going to just sail a little bit more for Matthew Stafford and his golden arm to find Cooper Kupp for 30 fantasy points this week. I bet it happens. Steelers have been giving it up religiously in the air. Cardinals Seahawks going to be a bit of a rainy one. We know in Seattle it always rains. That's like the only thing that happens in Seattle, I think, at all. It's going to be 58 degrees and rainy, 6-mile-per-hour winds at Lumen Stadium, which I did not know that was the name for the Seahawks Stadium, but apparently it is. Not too bad, though. Watch out for the rain. We'll make sure to update yourself with how it develops and everything like that. Packers Broncos right here in Denver, Colorado. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day on Sunday, which I am blessed for. I'm very excited for. We'll definitely try to go on a walk. 78 degrees, 6-mile-per-hour winds at Empower Stadium. Should be a breeze over there for the Packers to beat up on the Broncos, most likely. We got Chargers Chiefs. Definitely going to be game of the week candidate. 67 degrees and 9-mile-per-hour winds over in it's in SoFi Stadium. I think we already talked about this, guys. Wait, Rams. I'm really having to go back and check my work here. Rams. Chiefs. Maybe the Chiefs play in Arrowhead? I think the Chiefs got it. They got to play in Arrowhead. 67 degrees, 9-mile-per-hour winds over there in Arrowhead. I was looking at this yesterday, so update. Chiefs playing in Arrowhead this week. Then we got Dolphins, Eagles, 58 degrees, 17-mile-per-hour winds in Sunday Night Football. So definite cause for concern at Lincoln Financial Field. Going to be ruthless with 17-mile-per-hour winds. So we'll see how that affects stuff. Definitely going to be more running than passing, in my opinion. Then we got 49ers Vikings to end the week. 59 degrees, 8-mile-per-hour winds at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Shouldn't be terrible. no real game effects. The ones that we're pretty much looking out for are Dolphins Eagles with the 17 mile per hour winds, Lions Ravens with 17 mile per hour winds, and then Bills Patriots with 14 mile per hour winds. And then I guess over there in MetLife Stadium, Commanders Giants 12 mile per hour winds in that game. So just want to keep you guys updated. You know that I will do that for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you're back here tomorrow for the matchups episode, Friday matchups, and I will see you guys.